out there. Good morning, good morning, good morning.
Awesome. Now, this show is being streamed live on YouTube, so you can catch the live stream up on our YouTube channel, Smooth981. And don't forget to subscribe. You can also send your messages via WhatsApp. It's 0809 444 981. And you can also tweet at Smooth981.
Well, that said, Rotus, the focus for us this morning is to get into business and look at the manufacturing sector of the country. It would appear that from afar, even from one who's not trained at Harvard or one of those Ivy League institutions, you can tell that that sector is struggling. But we need you to help us speak to this.
Yeah. Look, it's not just manufacturing; it's also mining. So if you look at Nigeria's trade numbers for the third quarter of this year, right? That is June through July through September quarter, right? We did about 18 trillion naira in total trade. And that's, as far as compared to what we were last year, is basically a 53% increase. So we're talking about just selling anything, making it and selling it overseas. Trade, how much did you export and how much did you import, right? So our exports were 10.3 trillion naira, and that was a 74% climb year on year. Now, the thing is, out of that 10.3 trillion naira, 9.1, pretty much 90% of our exports were crude oil and other oil derivatives. So the gist of this is that Nigeria is basically still incredibly dependent on crude oil for money, for foreign exchange, right? Our imports came out to 8.4 trillion. And that's where you want to dig in to say, okay, what is Nigeria importing versus what she's exporting, right? So if you look at the okay, you know what I'm going to do, let me dump some numbers on the Tory. I'm just going to forward these figures because I summarized them, right? Let me do this. Let me send it to both of you, Omas and Zibby, because the trade numbers thing is like a 60-70 page document, so there's a lot to review. So anyway, if you look at our imports, you'll see that manufactured goods, we imported 3.9 trillion worth of manufactured goods into the country. On the flip side of the coin, we exported only 200 billion, right? So you are bringing in almost 4 trillion of manufactured goods. You are exporting just 200 billion naira worth of goods. Look at raw materials. We imported 950 billion naira worth of raw materials. We exported about 189 billion. So you're importing 950 billion worth of raw materials. You're exporting 189 billion. So big lopsided picture there. Solid minerals, I didn't even get the imports, but I missed that. I don't know, I have to go back and look at the documents. But we exported 41 billion naira worth of solid minerals in a 3-month period. There's some breaking news I just saw a few minutes ago, right? On the solid mineral landscape. Rio Tinto, the largest miner in the world, I think they're headquartered in Australia. They just announced that they are going to invest $6 billion in Guinea to build out a new iron ore mine. Because of steel needs in China, India, and everywhere else, automobiles, electric vehicles, there is growing demand for iron ore, and existing mines are running out. I think it's not going to last forever. So Guinea is going to, and they're going to build a rail line. So because when you extract the iron ore from the ground, you've got to transport it to where you got to ship it out and so on and so forth, whether it's by sea or whatever. So they're going to build the infrastructure there. So that's $6 billion that is going into tiny little Guinea. And according to the CEO of Rio Tinto, Guinea's iron ore deposits, he says, are some of the highest quality in the world. He says they're right up there with somewhere, he mentioned Brazil. So this is Dele Alake's job right here, which is our Minister of Solid Minerals and so on and so forth. And I said this when he was appointed, that in fact, there was something, I think we talked about it on the show, where I said that one of his top priorities was to get a Rio Tinto or another company to invest in Nigeria. So it depends now on our quality of our solid minerals and so on and so forth. So this is where it is. This is a perfect example of what we're talking about. But back to the trade numbers, you only did 40-something billion naira worth of exports in a 3-month period in terms of exports of minerals, solid minerals. There's a lot of smuggling there. There's a lot of issues in that department. So a lot of work has to be done. Okay. So that's what we're saying.
Okay, just to go a bit to Guinea, why prefer Guinea over Nigeria with what knowing that we've got this potential also, there's the Ajaokuta that's still there yet to take off, and all of those, with those infrastructure, we have a running rail already. Why would they pick a Guinea that they would need to build fresh infrastructure over Nigeria?
Yeah, because he says Guinea the word that he used was exceptional quality. So it's not just about having iron ore. Nigeria has several deposits of iron ore, right? I think Kogi State in or around the Takpe or so. That's the last I checked on where
that's the Ajaokuta. Yes.
Right. So we have iron ore. We've got several deposits. The question now is it of enough good quality to attract investment? And they say, according to the CEO of Rio Tinto, that Guinea has one of the highest, purest quality of iron ore on the planet. So and see, it's also interesting that he mentions Brazil. Brazil is no joke, like when we talk about people, when I mention Brazil, is football the first thing you think of? I mean, most people think football, right? Brazil has oil. Brazil is on tap to join OPEC next year, from what I hear. Brazil has oil. Brazil is one of the biggest sugar producers in the world. Brazil makes parts for planes. They've got their own equivalent of Boeing and Airbus. So they've got oil, they've got sugar, they've got quality iron ore deposits. They've got some of the best footballers in the world in terms of exports. They've got a rich culture. Brazil is a giant. I mean, they when you talk about a diversified economy that has, it has elements of, things that can push GDP forward. Brazil they are a major player on this planet. We import sugar from Brazil, right? So for him to, I was just listening to the interview where he was talking, the fact that he was like, oh wow, Guinea's iron ore can compete is one of the purest quality and can compete with Brazil. I was like, wow, so you mean on top of everything Brazil has, Brazil also has high quality iron ore as well? These are the things that push your economy forward. So that if in Brazil, if you look at their trade numbers now, you will see, as opposed to Nigeria, where 90% of your exports are crude oil. In a Brazil, you'll see iron ore, you'll see sugar, you'll see oil. It's divided almost, not evenly, but at least it's diversified. That's the whole point. That's where you got to be.
All right, so speak to what you call now. This will be pointing towards what you call the balance of payment as we head out into the year. So what would this give to us, a surplus or a deficit?
Well, we had a surplus, which is good. So this is your trade balance. A surplus is when you exported more than you imported. A deficit is when you imported more than you exported. So it's just buying and selling. It's like any business. Did you sell more than what you brought in? So it was almost 2 trillion. So basically, it's just simple math. You just take the exports of 10.8 trillion. You subtract the imports of, 8.4, and then you get almost 1.8, 1.9 trillion. So, which is good for us. We have basically had a deficit of about 400 billion this time last year. So it's good. It's good news. The numbers are good, but the issue is that when crude oil, sneezes, Nigeria catches a cold. So the last two recessions that we fell into was when crude oil prices dipped. So, we got to do more. We've got to develop, our solid minerals is another gold mine, to excuse the pun, because we got gold there as well. We just have to develop it.
Okay, I just want to take a few messages coming through. This is from Michael. Michael says, Why do we have to export iron ore when we can empower local manufacturers? He lists a few organizations to convert them to finished products for export. We can create employment by adding value to raw materials locally. And Fine says, why can't genuine companies invest in Nigeria? Rather, it's some crooked companies from a certain region, which will not be named, that will end up here milking us blind. This government can change our fortunes if they are sincere. Benga says, I agree with Rotus. Brazil is big. You know, many of the big vehicles used for city and intercity transport, the Marco Polos, are made in Brazil. They make all manner of things there. How come these guys overlooked us and went for Guinea? It's now in Alake's court to attract the necessary investors for the mining sector in Nigeria. I hope he isn't all talk. We want to see real action.
All right, so moving on, Rotus, someone has to get Rio Tinto's number, and maybe you definitely will get his number and forward it to Alake to see if we can do a last-minute change of mind to get that investment in here. But help us understand who we should be doing business with now. Let's discuss 5 top trading partners and what's the storyline we can take from that.
Yeah, that is, and you see, look, this trade, you can talk about this for almost 1 hour. I know we're almost out of time, but it's very important that we talk about our trading partners. So with everything I just discussed now, who are the top 5 countries that we dealt with? For exports, the number 1 was Spain. Spain was in first place as far as our exports are concerned. In fact, I'll just quickly forward it to you guys. You guys can take a look at this and just for your own personal knowledge. And by the way, anybody who wants to see this is on the Bureau of Statistics website. Just go there, you'll see the numbers there, and you can download it. So Spain, number 1, 12% of total exports. Number 2, India, 9.8. Netherlands, number 3. Indonesia, number 4. France, number 5. We talk a lot about intra-Africa trade and how Africa needs to trade with itself. The only country that appeared in the top 10 was South Africa. So that was the only country in our top. Everything else was North America, Asia, Europe. And then if you go to imports, of course, no surprise here. The biggest country we imported from is China. So 23% of our imports came from China. Number 2 was Belgium. Number 3, India. Number 4, Malta. Number 5, United States. Again, South Africa wasn't, I think they were barely in the top 10. So the conversation there is, look, we have Africa Continental Free Trade Area agreements and all that talk. We need to see, when all that talk is gone, when the trade numbers come out, you go and dig into the numbers and you see whether the talk is being backed up by. So there's still a long way to go in terms of trading within Africa and trading with our sisters and brothers, as it were.
All right, one final message as we wrap up the show this morning. We've got Yinka Bolu's message, and he's still typing in right after sending this one. Yinka, okay, it concluded now. Yinka's message goes thus. It says, since sometimes when these investors make certain statements and we start wondering why they look at other countries than Nigeria, most times it's caused the operating hurdles. For example, some of these guys go to other countries to mine from, but not transfer knowledge. You dare not in Nigeria, thanks to our local content laws, and these investors don't like it. I'm talking from the oil and gas perspective, which I have knowledge of. In terms of knowledge, you can't compare an Angola to Nigeria. Yinka Bolu's thought this morning.
Agreed. We're the giants. You gotta act like a giant, you know?
All right, so that's where we... Yes, certainly. But then let's see how we can get more persons to do business, because we are open for business in Nigeria. But then,
Omas, next year is crucial. 2029. I mean, I know there was an election this year. A new government came in April, May. There was all this other. Next year, hey, they need to make some serious strides in 2024. It's real serious. So let's see what happens. They need to really work next year.
Thank you very much. Are you doing bonanzas this morning?
I'm not doing bonanza.
To boost the trade.
All right. Well, that is all the time that we have for Business Express. Thanks for listening and thanks for sending your thoughts through. Thank you, Rotus. Have a brilliant day ahead.
Thanks, guys. See you tomorrow.
Bye.
Do stay with us.